Okay, the Health and Human Services Committee will come to order. Mr. Shadoum, please call the roll.
Representative Zabon.
Present.
Bradfield.
Here.
Bradley.
Here.
English.
Excused.
Gray.
Here.
Emmerich.
Excused.
Johnson.
Excused.
McCormick.
Here.
Ryden.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Woog.
Excused.
Leader.
Present.
Madam Chair.
Here. Okay, welcome everyone. We are going to move a little bit out of order than what was announced. We're going to start with House Bill 1325, and then 1327, and then 1092, and then maybe slot in the Sunset Division of Professions and Occupations when we can. So we are 2 minutes for witnesses today and 10-minute panels, and it looks like we already have our prompt sponsors. Amazing. If you want to go ahead and tell us about your bill. Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Representative Foray and I are introducing legislation that directly confronts one of Colorado's most pressing crises, the intertwined epidemics of opioid use disorder, treatment-resistant mental health conditions, and trauma, especially among our veterans. Colorado is facing a severe and worsening mental health crisis. Existing treatments too often fall short of delivering long-term remission and recovery. That is why we must responsibly explore innovative, evidence-based options, and why this bill creates the Ibogaine Research Pilot Program. Let me first explain what Ibogaine is and why it matters. Ibogaine is a naturally occurring psychoactive alkaloid derived from the root bark of the Tabernath iboga plant, traditionally used in Central African healing practices. Modern research shows that a single medically supervised dose can interrupt opioid dependence and dramatically reduce relapse risk. Clinical studies report on an 80 to 97% success rate in preventing relapse, with withdrawal symptoms eliminated in just 24 to 72 hours compared to weeks or months of traditional rehab. Improve PTSD, depression, and anxiety by helping repair damaged neural pathways and giving patients new perspectives on their trauma. Support neurological recovery. Most notably, a 2024 Stanford study published in Nature Medicine found significant improvements in functioning, PTSD, depression, and anxiety among veterans with traumatic brain injury after Ibogaine therapy. Because Ibogaine remains a Schedule I substance under federal law, U.S. research has been severely limited. This bill changes that for Colorado by creating a tightly regulated, medically supervised research pathway. Here's exactly what HB 26-1325 does. It establishes the Ibogaine Research Pilot Program inside the Behavioral Health Administration. It authorizes up to 5 pilot sites across the state to conduct rigorous institutional review board approved research under full medical oversight, including pre-screening, continuous monitoring, and adverse event reporting. It requires the BHA to form a review committee to select sites based on scientific merit, safety protocols, and community benefit. It directs the BHA and pilot sites to pursue federal authorization, including FDA investigational new drug, also known as IND, applications and potential federal research program status under 21 USC 872. It creates a dedicated cash fund and grant program so the state can accept public and private gifts, grants, and donations, ensuring the research is not solely reliant on general fund dollars. It mandates a benefits sharing plan with indigenous communities that have stewarded the iboga plant for centuries. It brings expertise from the Natural Medicine Advisory Board into future rulemaking and adds targeted safety guardrails for when and if Ibogaine care is ever expanded beyond the pilot. The bill also makes 2 modest technical improvements to our existing natural medicine framework. It equalizes expertise requirements across all 15 members of the advisory board and clarifies facilitator liability protections. It also gives the Department of Revenue clear authority to set differentiated licensing fees to prioritize pilot site applications. Members, this is not about rushing a new treatment to market. This is about responsible, science-driven exploration of one of the most promising therapies emerging anywhere in the world. Every day we delay, more Coloradans lose their lives to overdose, more veterans struggle in silence, and more families bear the cost of inadequate care. I respectfully ask for your support for HB 26-1325 so that Colorado can lead safely, ethically, and with rigorous oversight in giving hope to those who have run out of options. Members, you probably have by now some amendments. We have 5 amendments with an amendments explainer. We'll also have DOR, BHA here as well. If you have some specific questions, I think we're going to do the amendments at the end, but I'm happy to go through it when we get there on what the amendments actually do.
Thank you. Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to be in front of the committee again. This is my final bill day, so you're welcome. The one thing I wanted just to note and piggyback, he did a really good job explaining what this bill does. One of the reasons that I decided to join this bipartisan effort is because earlier, before session started, Rep. Caldwell and I were down in Colorado Springs at the Student Veterans of America National Conference, and they had 2 leaders come join some of the veteran electeds for dinner, and they both were researching natural medicine, and that to me really stood out. Historically, when we were suffering from our own internal struggles, we often just medicated by drinking. That was the millennial generation way of coping. And one of the things I had noticed by talking to some of these student veteran leaders was that they were interested in different types of therapy. The traditional therapy approaches were not working, and they wanted to explore others. And so when we started exploring natural medicine last year, and then again this year, this is a bill that I thought would be a responsible way to explore a different type of therapy that our veteran community, especially our younger veteran community, is asking for. So I wanted to jump on and support this just from a veteran perspective lens. So thank you for listening, and I hope to have your yes vote.
Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to my co-prime sponsor's point, I've spoken directly with several veterans who've actually gotten this treatment. So currently, because it is Schedule 1, people have to travel down to Mexico and get this treatment. There's actually a great documentary on it on Netflix called In Waves and War that really kind of outlines it and follows a group of Navy SEALs. I've spoken with a Navy SEAL who lives here in Colorado and who is an elected official, and he wanted to be here today, and I don't believe he was able to make it, but he talked about his experience with his Navy SEAL friends going down and getting this treatment, and how kind of impactful it was to him. I also spoke with someone whose sister was addicted to heroin for 20 years, went to Mexico, did the Ibogaine treatment, and has been clean ever since. And it's been a couple years since then. So heroin for 20 years, 1 Ibogaine treatment, and has been clean for a couple years now. There may be some experts here that can talk about all the details and how it actually works in the brain. I've got some things on here, some notes, if you were to ask that question. But, I don't view this as, I can imagine some people view this as, this is a drug legalization thing. It's not that. We decriminalized Ibogaine. The voters did in 2022. But right now we just don't have any guardrails, any safety measures around it. And we have a very unique opportunity here to actually explore it and see how it works. I'm very much of the kind of all of the above approach, serving in the military for 10 years and serving in Afghanistan, and with most of the people I served with have deployed. Like my co-prime said earlier, some people self-medicate with alcohol, some people use pharmaceuticals, some people use marijuana, some people go to a counselor. Personally, as a Christian, I recommend going to church and starting there. But not everything works for everybody. And so what this looks like from my research on it is a very promising new potential treatment for those with opioid addictions and PTSD. Thank you.
Thank you, sponsors. Questions from the committee? Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for your service. I get where you guys are coming from. I obviously want to help veterans. I have a problem with there's not been any high quality random control trial evidence that clearly shows whether this works better than placebo or standard treatment for addictions. So there's no science, there's no large systematic review studies, but what we do know is that 50% of people that do this can have a QT interval, which is a heart rhythm problem, in a dangerous range, 50%. And that could last more than 24 hours. So I guess my question in a fiscal crisis, why are we doing this versus just maybe letting some more trials come out, letting some more information come out before we spend $700,000 in 2 years on something that we had talked about the state of Texas is putting $50 million into?
Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Bradley. So there has been quite a number of studies. I have a list here, Frontiers in Pharmacology 2018, concluded that it significantly reduces opioid withdrawal symptoms and cravings. Journal of Substance Abuse Treatment 2018, sustained reductions in opioid use post-treatment. American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse 2017, reductions in opioid use plus improved psychological outcomes. And then the Stanford-led study from 2024 that showed improvements in PTSD, depression, anxiety. To your point, I think that's the important part of this program here is what you raised about the potential medical issues. So there's a story if you Google 2021 Broomfield, Colorado, Ibogaine, it can have serious potential consequences because it is a very long and intense treatment session. And so that's why we want this program, because this program lays out the medical requirements and medically clearing people before they use this treatment, and then also requiring that they have medical professionals continuously uninterrupted monitoring the people with the treatment. And so that is my fear is because of that. But getting medically cleared before using Ibogaine, which in 2021 a Coloradan didn't do that, and from my understanding of the story it was administered by a friend, and that person unfortunately passed away at their home where they were going through this experience. And so what I want is, if people want to get this treatment, instead of going down to Mexico, we've decriminalized it here and do it under the supervision of medical professionals who can sit there and monitor them. And the important thing is clearing them ahead of time before they even do this. Because if you watch a documentary, like I said, there's a great one on Netflix. It's an experience. It's a very long experience. 10 plus hours. And so it's important that we have the medical professionals there keeping oversight over it. Thank you.
Just wanted to recognize that Representative Johnson joined us, and Representative Bradley. And Representative Woog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So let's say you have these pilot studies that go through and they say this is safe under the guise of the medical community, but the FDA has still not approved it. What happens then?
Sorry, Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Representative Bradley. So the process, the way that I understand it, and there may be some witnesses that can speak better to it, is we will have to apply from to the federal government to get one of these IND waivers, which usually sets like a timeline, like 2 to 3 years. This is how long your waiver is for. So this is how long you can do the actual the research studies on it. There will also be an amendment coming forward that allows us to share information with other states who may be doing this and other groups to see if our results line up with their results, if they're maybe doing something differently. And I kind of forgot what the question was originally, but I think what would happen is after this pilot research study gets done, we complete it within the waiver. I imagine if we need a little bit longer, they could submit a waiver. I think your question, if I'm not mistaken, is about the Schedule 1. It's still being Schedule 1. That's a good lawyer question. If it's still decriminalized here and we find that the pilot study comes back and it's positive, but it's still Schedule 1, I can tell you that I don't know if it's this article I have here. The federal administration has been talking for the last year about looking to move it from a Schedule 1, but it's kind of based on states like what we're doing right here. The federal government wants states to do these studies to give the feedback before they move it from a Schedule 1. And that's why they're offering that waiver. And so Texas and Arizona are two states that I'm aware of who have started doing studies like that. But I think the moving it from Schedule 1 is going to be dependent on what the feedback from the states are.
Additional questions? Okay. No additional questions from the committee. Thank you, sponsors. We'll bring up the witnesses, and I got your. So we'll start with Nicholas McClellan, Kevin Johnson, Sally Roberts, and Cindy Brown. Okay, we'll start from my left to my right. If you can state your name, the organization you represent, and you have 2 minutes. And then there's a tiny little button right by the plug that you should push it until it turns green, if that's okay.
It's green right
Oh, you're great. Go right ahead.
All right. My name is Cindy Brown, and I'm here representing myself. Hello, committee members. Thank you for having me. I want to share how Ibogaine has changed my life 180 degrees. I have struggled with anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, childhood trauma, emotional, physical, sexual, PTSD, and insomnia, to name a few. I know I'm not the only one that can relate to my story of trauma. I am a retired first responder serving over 23 plus years. Once I retired, I thought life was going to get great. No, it got worse. I went to outpatient therapy at the Meadows in Denver with only a little hope. I went to the Stella Mental Health Center in Denver for a stellar ganglion block, which only reduced the mind chatter slightly. I then discovered Ibogaine, did research, and reached out to a clinic in Mexico. I'd never done psychedelics before, but at that point, I was losing all hope. I was referred to the Casey Scudin 343 Fund, which helped cover the costs, did pre and post integration for my journey. Even though I was skeptical, I kept hearing all these amazing stories of that I was not alone and that they could definitely help me out with Ibogaine. When I was on Ibogaine, I was able to see and come to terms with many things. I was able to see that I was numbing things out instead of facing them. I would have never been able to go into this deep insight, no matter how many pills, no matter how much drugs, alcohol, or coaching I did. Ibogaine was able to show me things in a new light and provide me ways to face it with a new lens than when the situation first occurred. I know Ibogaine was able to change things in my brain waves by activating the cerebellum, producing neuroplasticity. I know it changed my whole body, no longer having blood pressure, right eye twitching, restless leg syndrome, sleep depression, insomnia, you name it. After Ibogaine, I had no use of any medications that the doctors had to give to me, and including no more alcohol or drugs whatsoever to suffer. I do not want anyone on this planet to suffer anymore and end up like my brother did, losing hope and commit suicide.
Thank you. Thank you. So do you want to just finish your sentence?
Yeah. I know many Colorado residents are suffering in silence and have tried everything with little to no help. I want them to be happy, smile each day, and know that there is hope. Please, committee, let's help the people in Colorado and make this happen and save lives.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Please proceed. So there's a tiny little button right by the plug. I think you're good. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Kevin Johnson. I'm a Pueblo native, born and raised, East High School graduate, 1991. I joined the Army and spent 1991 to 1999 in the infantry and psychological operations. I wound up in St. Louis and got out of the Army, became a police officer. 9/11 happened 2 years after I became a police officer, and I went back in the service as a psychological operations specialist. I deployed to Iraq in 2004 and 2005. I was not wounded, but I was injured in Iraq, and I suffered from PTSD but didn't know it at the time. I got out of the Army in 2005 when we got home and went back to the police department. I was diagnosed with PTSD by the VA in 2006, and I had to leave the police department in 2007 due to PTSD and the injuries I received in combat. I found my calling as a cemetery director with the National Cemetery Administration shortly after that, and I managed cemeteries in Kansas, Nebraska, in Missouri prior to coming to Colorado as the assistant and director of Fort Logan National Cemetery, where I buried over 4,000 veterans a year. Many of them were suicide victims. That job was cool until 2018 when we opened Pikes Peak National Cemetery, and I was tasked with disinterring veterans from Fort Logan to be transferred to Pikes Peak for their final resting place. I disinterred personally over 200 veterans and their family members, and that's when my health started to crash. It brought back Iraq, stuff that I had suppressed with alcohol and work. Work was my drug. Alcohol was the thing that fueled it. I started bleeding from my intestines. I lost 95 pounds in less than a month. I was treated for Crohn's disease, IBS, IBD, polyps. None of that worked. A buddy of mine from Iraq called me up and said, hey, what about Mexico? Let's go try Ibogaine. I went to Mexico. I did Ibogaine, and chronic pain was gone. I wasn't cured of the gut problems, but the chronic pain was gone. I was able to concentrate on everything that I needed to heal myself.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, I appreciate your time here, and this is an honor. My name is Nicholas McClellan. I am a co-founder of Colorado for Ibogaine. I'm a lifelong Colorado resident, Cherry Creek, 1998, and someone who cares deeply about the state and the people in it. I am here today to speak from personal experience in support of creating a safe, medically responsible pathway for Ibogaine in Colorado. For me, this issue is personal. I have struggled with addiction and PTSD. I've seen countless friends suffer these same ailments, and most of them aren't here today to speak. I know firsthand what it means to search for healing and to confront the limits of the options available. That is what led me to Ibogaine. When I first learned about Ibogaine, I heard it could help relieve addiction, PTSD, and promote neuroplasticity in the brain. I was immediately interested, but I also learned that it could stress the cardiac system, so I took that seriously. I looked for proper care in Colorado, and although it's been decriminalized here, there is no treatment that truly exists in a safe, medically supported environment here in Colorado. Therefore, I went to Mexico for treatment. My experience with Ibogaine was one of the most significant healing experiences of my whole entire life. For me, it felt like a reset of my complete nervous system in real time. It felt like a real interruption in destructive patterns and genuine opportunity to reflect and begin rebuilding in a deeper way. What came through most powerfully to me was a core message that Ibogaine is here to help people heal. That does not mean Ibogaine should be approached casually. It carries real risks and demands real seriousness. That is exactly why thoughtful legislation matters. People are already seeking Ibogaine. The real question is whether people will continue to pursue in unregulated settings without clear standards or protections, or will you build a system grounded in safety, screening, medical accountability, and proper aftercare? I'm here today because I believe Ibogaine can save lives. I urge you to support a safe and medically credible pathway for Ibogaine because it is about healing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. With that, we'll move online to Ms. Roberts. If you can come off mute, say your name, your organization, and you have 2 minutes.
Hello, Madam Chair. My name is Sally Roberts. I am representing myself, Americans for Ibogaine, and the Veterans Mental Health Leadership Coalition. I have been a resident of Colorado Springs since 2003 when I first got residency at the Olympic Training Center. I have 2 resumes. One, I'm a 2-time world bronze medalist in women's wrestling. I'm a combat veteran from Special Operations. I wrestled for the Army's world-class athlete program, and I've gone on to become an entrepreneur and drive my own business. My second resume is that I've had multiple concussions, a TBI, I've had traumatic brain injuries, and I also have PTSD. And it's important for me to share that my PTSD is not a result of representing America as an athlete. That was a joy. It was not a result of me serving in the military. That was an honor and a privilege of a lifetime. My PTSD is a result of when I was 5 years old, my family was living in Aurora, Colorado. I was playing outside of our apartment complex. I got abducted from the playground. I was raped, and my body was left in a broiler room. And when I got pulled out of the broiler room, my mother at the time was told by the police detectives that I was not going to remember the incident and that I wouldn't need therapy. And that put me on a collision course with either going to be juvenile detention or, thank God, I found the sport of wrestling that has really helped me. In 2003, I was working in Washington, D.C., and I was really, by all mark and measure, living a fabulous life. But something wasn't right with inside of me, and I didn't know how to reconcile it, and I couldn't get it out. I had gone to the VA to see if they could give me support and assistance. I had been given a tremendous amount of pharmaceuticals to help me with this unknown injury that I couldn't describe. And it was finally when my therapist suggested I might go down to Mexico and try Ibogaine. At my most vulnerable, and certainly at my most mentally weak, I did, in fact, go down to Mexico and I sat with the medicine. And when I went into that medicine, I was a broken human being that was really without love, and I didn't know who I was. And when I came out, I realized that that plant medicine, it didn't give me my life back. It gave me the opportunity to live a life that I never had that was filled truly with love. Thank you for supporting this.
Thank you so much for your testimony. With that, we'll turn it over to the committee for questions. Representative Woog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, I wasn't sure if you had anything else to add. I just wanted to ask you if you had something else to add or if you finished up.
Thank you, sir. I would just like to add that.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry,
Go,
Kevin
please
Johnson.
proceed. Yeah.
I would just like to add that Ibogaine should be available for everybody that needs it. It saved my life. I went to Mexico 4 months ago for this treatment. I weighed 159 pounds, and I was barely able to make the trip. I wouldn't be sitting here before you today without Ibogaine and that treatment. Thank you.
Representative Bradley?
Thank you, and thank you all for your testimony. We appreciate your vulnerability. Did any of you try ketamine before Ibogaine?
I mean, I had a problem with the ketamine,
Mr. McCall.
so that's probably the reason I went. But I was abusing it, yeah.
Representative Bradley.
And then second question, did any of you that have done the Ibogaine, because the largest study on Ibogaine says 50% will have heart problems, a QT interval problem. Did any of you experience that?
No.
I'd had a heart attack prior.
Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
I'd had a heart attack prior to going to Mexico, so it was a major concern for me. It's the care that is provided. It's the pre-evaluation that you have to do with your personal doctor. And then it's the constant monitoring of the physicians, the medics, and the nurses while you're in their care.
Can I answer you about ketamine, ma'am?
Ms. Brown.
When I went to the Stellar Mental Health Clinic in Denver, they evaluated me and determined that ketamine would be useless for me to even try. After my exam, they said my case was so severe that the only benefit they could help me was to do the cellular ganglion blocks, where they inject a medicine in your carotid artery to reset your nervous system. And they said that was the only thing that would work. Ketamine, they said, would be a waste of time, and all the other modalities that they had at the facility.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, and thank you for answering that. So, Mr. Johnson, do you feel like that study was flawed because there wasn't good healthcare preventatively taking people subjectively and objectively through an exam to make sure they were aware of if there might have been heart conditions underlying, and then the treatment to make sure they were supervising through the entire plan? Like the Broomfield man, his friend that gave it to him left and went to go grab lunch and then came back and he was dead. So your experience is, if you're in a medical facility, that they are trained to watch for this and to prevent it from happening.
Mr. Johnson, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. That was my concern, was my heart attack. And that was the protocol that they put in place prior to me ever even being accepted into the program. I had to provide blood work. I had to provide EKGs, ECGs. I had to provide a medical history for them. It was that environment. When I got there, the first thing we did was a medical evaluation by doctors and nurses. We were on heart monitors the entire time we were in Ibogaine. That is absolutely. I can't speak to the study. I can't. I'm not that kind of a human. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But For me, it was the security of knowing that there were medical professionals there to take care of me. The only problem was I had to go to Mexico for it.
Can I also add to that?
Ms. Brown.
As a former national certified paramedic, and I can honestly say the only reason I even agreed to do the Ibogaine at the clinic in Mexico was because of how thorough they made me do an EKG before, blood work. They did all these tests. As soon as we got there, they rechecked our blood work. They did an EKG again on site. They made sure we completely had all the fluids, all the IV was prepared just in case there was an issue. We were already preset, and we were monitored 24 hours when we were in that room. There was my group, there was 6 of us. They had 8 nurses, and then there was 3 doctors that watched us at the clinic that I attended. And they watched us for the whole time with us hooked up to a heart monitor. And I felt extremely safe. And that is one of the reasons that I went, was because of the strict protocol. Because as being a paramedic, I know that it's if you don't do stuff by the order, people die.
Just want to note that Rep. English and Rep. McCormick have joined us. And then Representative Bradfield, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of you who are here today. When you went to Mexico, how many treatments did you have with this medication?
Mr. Johnson?
1.
I had one, and I would like to add.
Mr. McClellan, sorry. Just need to introduce you for the record so that people listening know who's speaking. So I apologize. Go ahead.
Nicholas McClellan here. But I had one treatment, and I was hooked up to magnesium the whole time, which protects your heart. That's one of the best protocols we have. And you're also doing electrolytes, potassium, so your heart's in good condition throughout the experience. And I hope that's part of the protocols moving forward here.
And Ms. Roberts, you had your hand up as well?
Yes, when I went to the clinic in Mexico, I was there for 7 days, completely monitored, and the facilities very much mimicked and mirrored that of the Olympic Training Center, where you had every access and resource on site to ensure that every step of the way you were going to be safe, you're going to be protected, and most importantly for me, coming from the athlete perspective, safeguarding. I wanted to know that in my most vulnerable time of need, they were truly going to take care of me from all facets, from all angles.
Additional questions from the committee? Okay, thank you all so much for participating today. We appreciate you being here. We'll bring up our second panel, Mr. Philip Wolf, Dr. Sue Sisley, Dr. Fernando Rivas, and Ms. Claire Durst. Okay, with that, we'll start in person. If you could introduce yourself, the organization you represent, and you have 2 minutes. It's already on. Oh, there you go.
Hi, my name is Philip Wolf, and I'm representing myself today. I have experience of 17 years with plant medicines in the legal space. I've also built a healthcare clinic in Haiti, which really drives my perspective of why I'm showing up here today. I really want to commend the sponsors of this bill for the aspects of reciprocity that they have included in this bill. Putting reciprocity into this bill is going to allow Colorado to stand head and shoulders above any other state that's doing this type of research, because it's a whole approach system that will provide reciprocity back to Gabon, where all of this technology, all this healing that we are having the opportunity to tap into comes from, specifically Bawiti people who have stewarded this cultural medicine. And the reason that reciprocity is going to make us the best in the world outside of a whole system approach is because that's going to help us create relationships with people in Gabon, where there's going to be an opportunity to tap into thousands of years of observational science to assist us, because the act of reciprocity is going to help us create relationship. And within that culture, which is so important to honor, we need to make sure that we have a broad scope of the different people who we are interacting with in Gabon, to make sure we are going to provide these reciprocal services in the best way possible. And again, that's going to put Colorado head and above everybody else, which I'm very excited about. And within that, there's also opportunities for funding mechanisms outside of psychedelics to be a part of this. Because what we're going to do with biopiracy, what we're going to do with some of the essentially the stewarding of around reciprocity, around implementation, around potentially Nagoya Protocol, around the protection of these ecosystems and the preservation of Iboga is going to allow a broader net to potentially bring in funding in here to the state of Colorado.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We'll move online to Fernando Rivas. If you could introduce yourself, the organization you represent, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Fernando Rivas, and I'm an emergency physician based in Cancun. Although I am the Chief Medical Officer for Transcend Clinic in Mexico, I am here on behalf of myself. I practiced as an ER doctor and professor for over 15 years before transitioning into addiction medicine and the clinical use of Ibogaine. I chose to go into emergency medicine because of its immediate impact. In the ER, you see the direct results of your actions. You stabilize, you intervene, you essentially save lives in real time. And I found exactly that same satisfaction in treating patients with Ibogaine. 4 years ago, I joined a clinic using Ibogaine to treat addiction. Within 2 weeks, I saw outcomes that changed my understanding of what is possible in medicine. This led me to make the decision to dedicate my career to this work. Eventually, that drive evolved to include a commitment to make the world a better place, not just by delivering Ibogaine to one patient at a time, but to do it in a larger scale by promoting research and education, developing innovative protocols around it, and voicing an opinion before clinicians, academics, politicians, and other relevant stakeholders. As physicians, we are trained to diagnose, to treat, and when possible, to cure. But over time, I have come to understand that this framework can be incomplete. The first principle of medicine is not simply to cure, it is to alleviate human suffering. Even when cure is not possible, relief still must be. In my professional experience, the degree to which Ibogaine alleviates suffering surpasses anything I have encountered before. I have seen patients who struggle with severe substance use for years, even decades, experience a level of interruption in their addiction that allows them, often for the first time, to meaningfully engage in recovery. I have seen patients with severe PTSD experience near immediate, lasting relief from debilitating symptoms that had burdened them for years and failed to respond to prior interventions. Ibogaine is a clinical intervention grounded in science that requires proper screening, medical supervision, and follow-up care. Under these conditions, it represents a promising and urgently needed tool. The state of Colorado has an opportunity to lead with a science-driven, compassionate approach to substance use and mental health that would allow for patients to access this treatment while at the same time generating scientific knowledge crucial to the widespread adoption of Ibogaine as a treatment form.
Thank you.
I would be more than happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much. We'll move to Claire Durst.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Claire Durst. I'm a trauma nurse, a TBI survivor, and someone who spent nearly 2 decades on the front lines of emergency and addiction medicine, including serving as medical director of operations at an Ibogaine clinic in Mexico. I'm here representing Americans for Ibogaine. You'll never be the same. That's what I was told after I suffered a traumatic brain injury at the start of my military career. I was a trauma nurse with over a decade in emergency medicine, trained to save lives. But suddenly, I couldn't save my own. For 6 years, I lived disabled. I followed every medical protocol, every medication, every therapy, every procedure. I became dependent on sedatives and benzodiazepines just to function. And still, I did not improve. Within months, my providers stopped searching for answers. My doctors quit on me. The system I devoted my life to didn't believe in my own recovery. So I kept searching across multiple states, across countries, and eventually I found Ibogaine. I've seen war, I've seen suicide, I've seen addiction devastate even the strongest among us. And I've never seen a treatment that works as effectively as Ibogaine. Clinically, it does something profound. It interrupts compulsive behavior, quiets the brain's default patterns, and operates and opens a window of neuroplasticity, allowing patients to confront and process deep-rooted trauma. Because addiction is not often about the substance, it's about the pain beneath it. Traditional rehab often cannot access this pain because the mind is still defending it. Ibogaine temporarily disarms those defenses. It allows patients to see the root of their suffering clearly and begin to heal it. And the results can be life-changing. But in the US, Ibogaine remains illegal, forcing Americans to seek treatment abroad, often without regulation. But we have the power to change that. We already know how to do this safely with proper medical and psychiatric screening, cardiac monitoring, continuous clinical oversight, and structured aftercare, just like we do in the hospitals with other high-risk medical treatments every single day. Yes, there are risks, but medicine manages risk. We do it with chemotherapy. We do it with surgery. We can do it here with Ibogaine too. I stand before you not as just a clinician, but as someone who's actually lived this. Ibogaine did not cure me, but it gave me my life back. We're ready to study it, to regulate it, and deliver it safely. And I urge you to open the door to real recovery.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We'll move on to Dr. Sisley.
Yep. Hi, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sue Sisley. I'm a physician and a clinical researcher, and I serve as principal investigator of the nonprofit Scottsdale Research Institute Foundation, where we conduct FDA-controlled trials looking at Schedule I substances. I'm here in support of House Bill 26-1325. From a research perspective, Ibogaine is certainly one of the most promising investigational compounds for opioid use disorder and several other important illnesses. There's already a meaningful body of observational research and international clinical experience suggesting that Ibogaine can significantly reduce withdrawal symptoms, it can interrupt patterns of dependence, and it can support a really sustained remission in many patients. There's also emerging evidence of the benefits with PTSD, TBI, other things that people have brought up earlier. At the same time, we do need more rigorous, controlled research in the U.S. and to fully understand the safety profile, to optimize the future treatment protocols, and generate objective data required for a broader medical application or adoption later. So this bill seems like a practical and responsible step forward. It creates a framework for a compliant and well-regulated research program that builds on what we already know about Ibogaine, but it also helps answer a lot of the questions that, the critical questions that still remain. So I know of a few Colorado researchers who are interested in establishing a clinical research site in Colorado, and I'm happy to mentor them through that regulatory process. You know, doing Schedule I research is not easy, and we're excited about the multi-state collaboration that is part of this, you know, that this bill would enable. So I guess, you know, we're all working international. Our group is working internationally as well to issue a memo of understanding with the country of Gabon and to try to study Iboga.
Thank you so much for your testimony. With that, we'll turn it over to the committee for questions. Vice Chair Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for any of the doctors that want to take the question. How long do you assess the patient before you administer the Ibogaine?
Dr. Rivas?
Thank you for the question. Patients must reach clinical stability, and that has different meaning depending on the nature of the patient. A typical opioid-dependent patient reaches stability in their detox process around day 5. Over the first few days of their stay at the clinic, they receive a thorough assessment, and the final clearance is given by an in-house cardiologist. Patients undergo ECG, cardiac echocardiogram or ultrasound of the heart, as well as laboratory investigations and any other investigations that may be relevant to ascertaining the safety of delivering Ibogaine for each specific patient. But it would be a several-day period over which patients are assessed.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions to Dr. Is it Rivas?
Yes.
I'm a medical professional. You're a medical professional. We know that the gold standard for medicine is random control trials, meaning that subject A may or may not get Ibogaine, subject B may or may not get it, and then you can subjectively and objectively make assessments versus just subjective, oh, I feel better kind of thing. So I'm asking you because I can't find any research that has a random control trial for this medicine?
Dr.
Rivas.
Correct. There are no randomized controlled trials for Ibogaine treatment. The only reports that we have are a series of cases, and that is part of the reason why we have such an opportunity to actually implement and deploy the badly needed trials to understand what patients benefit, what the safety profile of the treatment is, and its efficacy as well. You are correct. There are no randomized controlled trials at present.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you. So right now it's subjective reporting. I have another question. I'd like to understand the long-term outcome and follow-up, meaning how long you've actually followed patients. What is the longest amount of time? How many patients stayed in the follow-up? And what were your relapse outcomes? Because it looks like it's about a 50% relapse associated with Ibogaine.
Who would like to answer that? One of the doctors?
I could.
Dr. Rivas? Sure.
Thank you. The reported rates of success, and success is broadly defined as staying away from the problem substance at 1 year, range between 40 and 75%. These reports have been out for both stimulants and opioid use. However, it can be very challenging to structure follow-up for patients. The information that has been published in the case series supports a 45 to 75% success rate, which is significantly better than most current forms of treatment presently available anywhere in the world.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, and thank you for that. And how many people were in that 40 to 75% 1 year follow-up?
Dr. Rivas.
I would have to go through the study again to make sure how many individuals were, but there were smaller than 50 patients each report.
Additional questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for your participation. We appreciate you being here today. Okay, we'll move on to our third panel. Ms. Nicole Martin, Erica Gannett, Joshua Capel, and then let's also call up, we have two folks here for questions only, Allison Robinette and Dominique Mendiola. Are they online? Oh, in person. Hello there. Thank you. Okay, we'll start from my right to my left. If you can introduce yourself, the organization you represent, and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Erica Gannett, and I serve as the Legislative Affairs Officer for the Behavioral Health Administration. I'm here to testify today in support of House Bill 26-1325. You'll hear today, or you've heard already, from experts and individuals who've witnessed and even experienced firsthand the life-saving impacts of this medicine. So I'll keep my remarks focused on the BHA's role in the bill. The bill, in establishing the Ibogaine Research Pilot Program in the BHA, creates a program in which the BHA will approve up to 5 pilot sites who intend to pursue federal authorization to perform clinical research on the safety and effectiveness of Ibogaine to treat behavioral health disorders. Broadly, BHA will act as a convener and a partner in this process, supporting pilot sites to advance their research efforts. This includes establishing and facilitating the Pilot Site Review Committee, providing support and technical assistance to pilot sites as they apply for new or expanded INDs, exploring additional research authorizations, and facilitating partnerships with federal agencies to advance Colorado's research efforts related to the safety and effectiveness of Ibogaine, monitoring for the availability of grant funding aligned with pilot efforts in order to expand research, including opportunities such as state, federal, or private grants. We've all seen the devastating impacts that opioid use and severe mental health disorders have on people we love in our communities. And while many successful treatment approaches do exist, for those who do not receive benefit from these treatments, Ibogaine may be a life-saving option. And BHA is excited to partner to expand these research efforts into this treatment. We urge your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, hi, my name is Nicole Martin. I'm here today representing myself, but I'm actually on an advisory board with the Douglas County Opioid Abatement Council. I'm an advisory board member, under Commissioner Ibogaine, and I was also appointed as the Douglas County Opioid Abatement Council's liaison for Ibogaine research, and I've been doing that for a year. I'm here today with somebody with lived experience for chronic pain. I have not experienced Ibogaine myself, but I am excited about what it could bring to the table. One thing that, if I were to leave you with anything today, it would be that opioid use disorder is a brain injury. We talk about TBIs and why Ibogaine does treat that so well with that. What we don't talk about is that when you use opioids, it's not that you're not managing it correctly, but very quickly what happens is your brain stops making serotonin and it stops making dopamine very quickly if you have to start taking opioids. And many people have to do that every day for all sorts of injuries. I've had to do that myself. I also have an adult daughter who has been experiencing medical issues as well, and she's had to take those. So what ends up happening then is for your brain to start kicking that back in, you have to stop opioids altogether for 18 months before your brain will start to make those happy your serotonin and your dopamine again. The opportunity in itself, if as you go, and I have been through rehab for dependency because of me having multiple surgeries and trying to get off myself, and then I kept ending up in the hospital. I'm so appreciative for the current model. I would just ask that we add another tool to the toolbox and make Ibogaine available where we do not have to travel to Mexico. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Joshua Capel. I'm an attorney licensed here in Colorado. I'm one of the founders of the law firm Vicente LLP. I was one of the drafters of the Natural Medicine Health Act. I represent the Healing Advocacy Fund, who is in support of this bill, and also Colorado for Ibogaine, who I'm here on behalf of today. So thank you. Colorado's for Ibogaine is made up of patients, philanthropists, advocates, operators who are trying to create access to this tool of care here in Colorado. And this bill is really important for three main reasons. One, it's necessary to move this forward today. You know, we see thousands of people last year, 1,000 people, probably 5 people today in Colorado will die of overdose. And they need more effective tools. And we see the same every day with veterans committing suicide. And we have to do something about that. And this bill is a necessary piece, and Ibogaine Care with this research is a necessary tool to move this forward. It's also a really smart bill. You know, this bill is a two-tiered approach, you know, where it first moves forward with, you know, supporting BHA and creating a research program, working with the federal government with very clear safeguards, while also giving time for the state under the Natural Medicine Health Act to develop a safe program for Ibogaine Care and allowing, you know, both the regulatory agencies involved in that process and the advisory board to really look at and dive into what does continuous medical monitoring look like? What sort of screenings are necessary? And so this approach, this two-tiered approach of research and then a slow rollout of creating a system of providing care is really smart. And finally, it's responsible. You know, it's this measured approach, as I mentioned, but also it's culturally responsible. And and we've heard from others where it's, you know, there's measures in the bill that allow for reciprocity with indigenous groups who've worked with Iboga for centuries, if not longer than that. And so, you know, not only is this, you know, bill necessary, it's smart, but also responsible. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And if you could introduce, you both are here for questions only, right? If you could just introduce yourself, the organization for the record.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. My name is Allison Robinette. I serve as the Director of Policy and Regulatory Affairs for the Department of Revenue Natural Medicine Division.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dominique Mendiola, and I serve as the Senior Director for the Colorado Department of Revenue's, both our Marijuana Enforcement Division and our Natural Medicine Division.
Thank you so much. Questions from the committee? Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Ms. Gannett. You know, we're in a budget crisis. Where is $700,000 coming from?
Ms. Gannett.
Thank you for the question. Representative Bradley, I can speak to the BHA's portion of the fiscal note, which reflects about $150,000 in its first year, and then I think $154 in out years. That funding is reflective of one FTE and then additional funds to contract with specialists who have expertise in the administration of Ibogaine, FDA, IND processes, et cetera. It's a very small investment to make in advancing these research efforts in Colorado. As you noted earlier, $50 million has been invested into clinical research into Ibogaine in Texas. And while we don't have those funds at our fingertips, this is a small investment that we can make in order to advance these efforts specifically here in Colorado.
Representative Bradley?
Thank you. Same question for the lawyer. Americans for Ibogaine, are they going to grant fund this? I mean, I'm trying to figure out where this money is coming from. Are we just kicking this can down the road so that in appropriations, this bill dies? I'm trying to figure out where this money is coming from.
Mr. Capel?
Yeah, I don't represent Americans for Ibogaine, but with Colorado's for Ibogaine, we are looking at different philanthropic solutions, both for the BHA side and also for the full regulatory program. And I'm not in a position to opine on the specifics of Colorado's budget, but it is something where there is a lot of support to move this forward because of its efficacy. And, and I hope when we think about the cost of what opiate use addiction costs this state every year, and we look at this as a substitute treatment that's actually a lot cheaper. I mean, you're talking about, the latest numbers I saw was like about $63,000 per person who has opiate use disorder on relying on state funding, and that's over their lifetime. So if you could do a treatment that reduces those numbers, over the long run, it's actually very fiscally responsible. But I don't know the ins and outs of the state budget.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you. And I appreciate you said, listen, I am not for opioid use. Trust me. I'm not. I love natural medicine. I love a lot of natural medicine, especially during COVID. That being said, thank you for that. You talked about efficacy. There's no random control trials on this drug, which is the gold standard for medicine. So that's my hesitancy as a healthcare provider. I get where we're coming from. I want veterans to be treated. I want them to be taken care of, but there's no real long-term follow-up. There's no efficacy because there's no random control trials. And what I don't want to see are patients not being safeguarded. That is my goal.
Mr. Capel.
Yeah, one of the fundamental issues around this with randomized controlled studies is that the impact of Ibogaine is so life-changing that they haven't been able to find a placebo that actually works. And so this is a common issue when you look at this field of medicine around randomized controlled studies.
Mm-hmm. Additional questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you all so much for your participation. We appreciate you being here today. Let's bring up our final folks, Mr. Lundy Ramos and Mr. Henry Berkowitz. And then if there's anybody else online or in person that would like to come forward and testify. Is it just the one individual? Okay. Okay. We'll move to Mr. Lundy Ramos. If you could state your name, the organization you represent, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lundy Ramos, and I represent myself. I was appointed by Governor Polis in 2023 to the Natural Medicine Advisory Board as a representative for the mental health providers and mental health equity. I am also a licensed professional counselor and the founder and CEO of the largest outpatient therapy nonprofit in Colorado, serving uninsured populations. I also served as chairperson of the Natural Medicine Advisory Board for over 2 years. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but I give you that context. I'm speaking from direct service. From that vantage point, I have significant concerns with this bill as written. Colorado has already built a structurally sound framework for natural medicines under SB 23-290, and this bill departs from that structure. First, separating Ibogaine from the existing framework moves it away from established expert oversight to BHA without institutional knowledge. If Ibogaine requires greater caution, and I believe it does, that is an argument for stronger integration, not less. Second, the bill allows for a cash fund without clearly defining donor transparency or limits on influence. That raises concerns about public accountability and private influence. Third, changes to the board composition and removal authority create the potential, whether intended or not, to replace independent expertise with more aligned perspectives. Fourth, limiting provider liability to cases of intentional misconduct or gross negligence creates a higher barrier to accountability and weakens patient protections. Finally, on Ibogaine sourcing and benefit sharing, the advisory board engaged in months of deliberation with international experts advising the prior and informed consent from the collective voices of Gabonese First Nation stakeholders as essential. This bill does not reflect those recommendations. Additionally, those collective voices are not present in this room today, and that absence matters.
Thank you so
for
much.
Your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you so much for your participation. We appreciate you being here today. Okay. With that, the witness testimony is closed. Sponsors, would you like to come back up? I hear you have a few amendments.
Yes.
Representative Frey, would you like to move your first amendment?
Sure. You want me to make the motion and then you explain it? Good? All right.
You can make the move.
Representative Frey.
Thank you. I move L001 to House Bill 1325.
Second.
Representative Johnson? Okay, Representative Johnson seconds. Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I just want to apologize up front. I tried to give as many people as I could a heads up that there were going to be some amendments coming. The lawyers are going to lawyer. But I will say they worked very hard on it, and I'm just giving them a hard time. So I've got a short explanation here. So for L001, so we'd heard some questions about the fiscal note. So what this essentially is going to do is bring it down to where it's just the one FTE. So it's the $150,000. If you're looking at the original fiscal note, it's got a few different numbers on there, 327. It'll be roughly $150,000 for the one FTE. And as far as I think Representative Bradley, you had some questions about the funding thing. So I will say that talking with the governor actually multiple times on this, I feel like this is kind of, I don't want to say it's a priority without him actually saying it's a priority, but he has seemed very invested in this to make this work. And I know he has requested that the $150,000 be set aside for that. And so that's obviously going to have to be a decision between JBC appropriations and all of that. So it is not the 300 something that we'd seen in the original fiscal note, and L001 is going to do that. And it adds requirements for the BHA in overseeing the Ibogaine pilot program, and then liability for a physician or medical professional administering Ibogaine. I did catch that one of the last witness there had some concerns there, but if you read into the bill, it's kind of standard, like, gross negligence is obviously not acceptable, but also, as we've discussed over and over today, kind of throughout the testimony, that there are risks to it. There's always going to be risks when you're getting a treatment, especially one like this, and so things can happen, and unless the physicians are being grossly negligent or doing something improper, not following proper medical procedures or protocols, that's where your liability comes in.
Any questions on this amendment? Any objections to this amendment? Okay, seeing none, L001 passes. Okay, next amendment, Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L002 to House Bill 1325.
Representative Johnson
Second.
keep speeding you. Representative Frey, would you like to explain the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since my bill sponsor took too long to talk about the other amendment, I'll go a little bit faster for you. The number 2 is the Indigenous Benefits Sharing Agreement. So this strengthens the relationship with the Indigenous people to share data, potential funding. This is what one of the people that testified talked about in terms of making sure that people of Gabon are aware and in the conversations.
Any questions on, Minority Leader Caldwell?
I'm just joking.
Any questions on this amendment? Any objections to this amendment? Okay, seeing none, 1L002 passes. Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L003 to 1325.
Second. Vice Chair Leader seconds. Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one requires rules to be adopted concerning the administration of Ibogaine. We ask for a yes vote.
Any questions on this amendment? Any objections to this amendment? Okay, with that, L003 passes. Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L004 to 1325.
Second. Vice Chair Leader seconds. Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This sets requirements for the state licensing authority regarding the inclusion of Ibogaine in funding for new natural medicines. We ask for a yes vote.
Any questions on this amendment? Any objections to this amendment? Okay, with that, L004 passes. Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last but not least, I move L005 to House Bill 13.
Second. Representative Johnson seconds.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Frey.
This will adjust the liability for facilitators, as we had mentioned. This changes the priority of applications to the state licensing authority and requires a licensee seeking to cultivate, manufacture, test, or dispense or administer Ibogaine to consult with Indigenous communities to establish a benefit sharing plan.
Any questions on this amendment? Any objections to this amendment? Okay, seeing none, L005 passes. Sponsors, would you like to wrap up? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Committee, are there any additional amendments? Sponsors, no?
No.
Okay, with that, the amendment phase is closed. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Sponsors, would you like to wrap up? Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. If I can turn your attention to the Netflix documentary, it's only an hour and a half long. We're going to use that for closing. Only kidding, though. So I think everybody's heard here that the potential here, and I appreciate the back and forth and the conversations as far as studies. I mean, this is what we want to do, right? Like we want to kind of lead the way on this and see if what our results are, compare with other states, and hopefully provide that research that eventually leads this Ibogaine to no longer being a Schedule 1 if the results lead that way. When I was walking into committee, I just purely coincidentally ran into a friend from the Common Sense Institute, and he said, "Hey, did you see the study we released last week?" And here's what the study said. It said Colorado is one of only 5 states with increased fentanyl use. Overdose deaths in Colorado increased 17% since December 2024, while the national trend is going down 21%. So Colorado has increased 17%. Nationally, the trend is down 21%. And Ibogaine is one of those treatments that I believe can make that difference and get people back onto the right path. I want to leave you, and the last thing I'll say, because my co-prime's getting fidgety over here. I read a quote by Governor Rick Perry, and Governor, former Texas governor, I think had reached out to some of you on the committee, and I thought this was very eye-opening, and this really shows, you have a Democrat governor here in Colorado, you have the former governor of Texas, a Republican, and this quote from Governor Perry is this: "I traveled to see Ibogaine clinics in Mexico myself. I met the doctors and researchers. I listened to the patients. I studied the clinical data. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Every one of us knows someone who's struggling, whether with addiction, trauma, or mental health. This is the cause I will dedicate the rest of my life to fighting for, because too many lives hang in the balance to do anything else." I really appreciate all the engagement and all the questions, and would ask for your support.
Representative Frey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo what my co-prime has shared, and I just want to note that we know when the governor says that, oh, I want to set aside money, that it's not always guaranteed. We hear that, and we've been hearing that a lot. We are going to proactively look for gifts, grants, and donations to help fund this because we are in a budget crisis this year, and I understand the concerns around wanting to fund a pilot program in a budget crisis year. So that is something we are going to proactively be looking to do. So I just wanted to put that in your ear as well, if there were concerns in that. And I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Frey, would you like to move your bill?
Yes.
The
Finance, I think.
Committee on Appropriations.
Appropriations?
Yes.
Thank you. I move House Bill 1325 as amended to appropriations.
Second.
Oh, Representative Barone, I think, got the second on that one. Okay, closing comments from the committee. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sponsors, for bringing this. And thank you, ML, for being willing to continue talking on some of the funding. But for veterans, for first responders, I will be excited yes today.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsors and everyone that came to testify. I ask a lot of questions because I need to try to figure out where my stance is going to be. I take a lot of notes. I know it gets annoying sometimes. I appreciate, I heard that. I appreciate the priority for veterans. I appreciate the priority for people that conventional medicine just doesn't work for. I agree. I think we're in an opioid crisis. I think there's been too much prescribing of opioids and too many side effects. And I'm always looking for alternatives to those things, especially for with natural medicine. My concern is the trials, right? Is that we're just hearing subjectively that these people get better, and there's not been the gold standard. And then I hear you say, but Brandy or Representative Bradley, we need those pilot programs to move towards that. So I'm very torn. I told you coming in when we talked offline, I did not know how I was going to vote on this because I see where you guys are coming from, and I understand it, and that's why I asked so many questions. I need to talk to you probably more. We'll be a no today, but look forward to alternatives for our veterans and want to talk a little bit more offline so I can get to a comfortable position on seconds. Thank you.
Representative Ryden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to support this today. I work in this space and there is a shortage of medication-assisted therapy, so really excited that we can start looking at some other avenues to truly provide some relief, especially interested not just on the ramifications for PTSD and addiction, but also for chronic pain. That also is a huge deficit that we have and we know contributes to the fentanyl crisis and opioid issues that we have. So thanks for bringing this.
Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for bringing this bill, and thank you to all the people who spent time with us this afternoon to tell us about their experiences. I'm pleased to vote yes.
Vice Chair Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had no idea what Ibogaine was before, I won't say names, came to me, brought me his piece of paper, and I'm like, what? And I'm out there, he's explaining it to me, and then I did some more research, and I go, I'm going to listen to the testimony. But thank you for bringing this, because I know we had already passed it when we did the mushroom bill. It was already passed, so it's just kind of out there as a Wild West here. At least I think this kind of brings in some type of guardrails on it and looks at different ways to do this. And I'm all about getting rid of fentanyl and the opioid addiction and helping our veterans. So I will be a yes today. So thank you.
Thing you, sponsors, for bringing this today, and also just wanted to say thank you to all the folks who brought their lived experience and shared those personal stories were really powerful. So with that, Mr. Shadoon, could you please call the roll?
Representatives Baron.
See.
Hartfield.
Yes.
Bradley.
Respectfully, no.
English.
Yes.
Frey.
Yes.
Amrick.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
McCormick.
Yes.
Ryden.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Woog. Yes. Leader.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The bill passes 12-1. You're on your way to Committee on Appropriations.